Lately, a lot of cars have been finding their way into the limelight, whether it's because of their thrilling performance, all-wheel drive rally car spirit, superb handling, bang-for-the-buck capabilities, or a remarkable combo of everything. These vehicles deserve a slice of the enthusiast pie. So where does the Nissan Z fit into the picture? When you're trying to appeal to a crowd that's become increasingly skeptical over the future, nostalgia becomes your best friend. But at best, it gets your foot in the door. The twin-turbo V6, rear-wheel drive, heritage-inspired design, and 6-speed manual transmission scream 90s sports car. And this is not a surface-level experience because it feels like an old car. The platform traces its roots to the turn of the century. And on the inside, it feels like they've copied the homework of their own 350Z, but changed a few things. In this case, it was a couple screens and some stitching. It's refreshingly simple. We have physical buttons, big knobs, and tuner-style gauges. I also love that this is a hatchback. The cargo area is a little shallow, but it's long and wide. It's also great for scatterbrained YouTubers, as you don't need to go around the car and open the trunk. You can just reach 6 inches behind you and grab whatever it is you need. And if what you need is more fun, detailed car content, consider subscribing and hitting the bell for notifications. Thank you. At 6'3", I fit in the driver's seat well. However, the lumbar support is as aggressive as Hoosiers when you compliment Carmel, Indiana. But at least my thighs are gifted with sufficient support, and we even have a tilt and telescoping steering wheel, something that has eluded many Z cars in the past. But again, the age does reveal itself in other areas. Nissan added a big touchscreen, but in order to fit it, they had to place it a little low. The infotainment itself is dated, yet simple. At least it does have wired CarPlay, and thankfully they've left all the physical stuff that you could ever want, including the climate controls, but those have to be placed even lower, to the point where the dials sit below the steering wheel level, making them a little sketchy to use in motion. Additionally, this is actually a base model, which is why it probably looks worse than most of the ones you've already seen. Everything is a dark, cheap plastic or cloth. However, the actual construction and build quality does at least feel better than my GR Corolla. And if you do want to add some color or leather upholstery, you can step up to the performance variant. However, that's going to push you into the mid $50,000 range, and I don't think that would be too fair to the other cars in this series, though let's ignore the Integra. The one subjective area that the Nissan bests the rest of the cars I've tested is style. While I wasn't sold on it upon debut, it's grown on me. The headlights are sick, the taillights are beautifully retro, the curves in the silhouette are textbook sports car, yet the end product is original. It stands out anywhere it goes, even in a city of nauseating wealth and stores that I can't pronounce. In keeping with the 90s sports touring car theme, the suspension was set up in a way that doesn't lean toward racing. There's no adaptive dampening, there's no tuned on the Nürburgring setup, and that makes it surprisingly compliant over uneven pavement and most imperfections that you run over. It'll still crash over potholes, but this should still eat up highway miles pretty easily. For a multitude of reasons, this feels less at home on tight corners. At low speeds, the suspension is all right, but as the speeds go up, it begins to feel much less poised. Though on back roads, it doesn't feel near as much like the boat that the Mustang GT without the Magna ride was. But it's still more of a chore to drive it closer to its limits than it is a joy. There's too much body roll, it just doesn't feel happy. A lot of more serious enthusiasts will want to go to the aftermarket to fix that. The steering, though, is more promising in my mind. Off-center, the steering builds up in weight nicely and talks a little. However, it does feel kind of darty as well, because on center, and maybe this has something to do with that suspension, it feels a little vague. So when it finally decides to change direction, it does it fast. And speaking of fast, we also have 400 horsepower and 350 pound-feet of torque from a 3-liter twin-turbocharged V6. Nissan has a long history of forced induction, 6 cylinders, and it shows. This has a ton of punch in the mid-range without dying until it approaches its 7,000 RPM redline. Lag is present, but not awful in most scenarios. When you're pushing the car, it does feel like it needs to rebuild boost after shifting from first to second. Additionally, these power ratings are for 93 octane, something that California doesn't really believe in, resulting in a 4.9 second dash to 60 on a slight incline. I think this is a great engine for the job. It hits like Mike Tyson in his prime, and it's also as unpredictable as Mike Tyson in his prime. So first, there's no limited slip differential on the base sport model. It means that the car is more happy operating at 0.8 than 0.10. And when you do reach its limits, it can get a little twitchy as it tries to put the power down. And the thing is, you reach them very quickly, not just because of the raw power that this thing puts out, but also because of the throttle tuning, which is surprisingly bad. The pedal itself is not very linear. It kind of just feels like all of the power comes nearly at once. Sometimes it just takes off in an unpredictable manner, which when you're pushing a rear-wheel drive, high-powered car is not something you want. As standard equipment, you will have a 6-speed manual transmission. It has great gearing. The medium-length throws are smooth, with plenty of vibrations being felt from the engine too. There's maybe a touch of rubberiness. It's not the most precise unit that I've tested, but it really reminds me of an old BMW. It's an easy car to drive. You can also get a Mercedes design 9-speed automatic. With more ratios to work with and a robot manning the ship, it should be a little quicker too. For even more speed, Nissan also offers the $66,000 two-pedal only Nismo. While it's out of my budget, I would recommend a Nissan Z Performance as it gets better brakes, larger wheels, the aforementioned limited slip differential, and nicer interior. However, I'm glad to see the sport model for people who want to modify it anyway, something that this platform should be good for. And because of its old roots, I feel more confident about the longevity of this compared to basically any other Nissan. The VR30 DD-TT has been a solid engine for the most part. The most common issue people ran into when it was released for 2016 Infinities was related to serpentine belt snapping. Some folks say turbo oil leaks were a problem, but reports of that are scant. With the new Z in particular, it's hard for me to find issues. Some have had qualms with paint flaking and the rear view camera going blank, but nothing consistent or serious so far. Though don't expect super low running costs, as this has a drinking problem like you would expect. I began with the basic question of, who is this for? And I think I'm starting to get a grasp. I think one of the biggest overarching problems with the current Z is a lack of budget. I mean, using this old of a platform is one big hint that Nissan was only willing to put 1 or 2 eggs in this basket. But I think most signs of Nissan's neglect are revealed in the details. The fundamentals are right. We have good proportions, a strong engine, fun transmission, and enough versatility for a lot of people to use it daily. But they didn't spend enough time tuning this engine. There's feedback coming through the wheel, yet it's darting. And the suspension isn't settled when hustling it on real-life back roads. It's almost like they sprung the car when they weren't sure how much it would weigh. They also took a low-effort approach to the infotainment and modernization of the Z's cabin. Despite these things, I kind of like it. It's a charismatic blank canvas. You have the style, the speed, and most of the feedback you'd want from a sports car. Now, it's up to you to finish the job. This car has so much potential, but Nissan couldn't get it there. Leave it stock, and you have a decent cruiser that can carve some corners, reminding me of yesteryear entry-level sports cars. If you're looking for the 90s Japanese turbo street beast of 2024, the Z is tempting. It's nudging that part of my heart too. I just don't know if I'm ready to buy a $44,000 car because of what it could be. Thanks for watching. And thank you to my channel members and old Patreon supporters for making this series possible. I'll catch you in the next one.